Hello, Heather Macaulay.
Oh, hello, Jeremy Bloom.
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Love that word. I'm fantastic too. I always enjoy chatting with you.
Me too.
Over the past few years, you've become a real life friend, a good friend. You are a wonderful person. I have the pleasure of knowing who I'm speaking with. But for those listening to the OhHello podcast, the thousands of listeners throughout the world, and the hundreds of thousands across socials, why don't you tell us who do I have the pleasure of speaking with right now?
Well, I'm Heather Macaulay. I am president of MadConnect. That's where I spend a lot of my time. I'm also a mom of 3 little boys, a wife, and there you go.
There we go. Heather, you were sitting in Boston right now, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, north of Boston.
Wonderful area. One of my favorite, on a personal level, one of my favorite cities. Tell me a little bit more. What exactly is MadConnect?
Yeah, sure. MadConnect solves a big challenge in this industry. And that challenge
is... In which industry?
I would say advertising and marketing, right? Ad tech and MarTech. This industry is so dependent on each other. You can't open up, any news article, what have you. It's like this platform is partnering with this platform, and that's all well and good. But all of these platforms require these integrations and connections with each other to bring to life all the use cases and the magic that data can provide, like audience activation and measurement and reporting. MadConnect automates all of that connectivity. And with everything that's happening with AI, new layers of connectivity is being introduced. So that connectivity problem gets even worse. So think of us as like a switchboard for connectivity for the advertising and marketing ecosystem.
I love that. That's a really clean and simple way to explain to your friends, your family, and people outside of the advertising, marketing, tech ecosystem of what MadConnect does, just being a switchboard. I like that. That's easy to visualize.
Yes.
That simplicity right there. That is good marketing.
We try.
Yeah, for real, that's good. You were for my other company, you were at Architecture Live, and you had actually were in front of 450 people. You had a fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
I'm throwing my own personal subjectivity into it because I'm a believer in you and I'm a believer in your team and your business, but objectively, amazing presentation. And just in terms of a startup pitch that you did, tell us a little bit more about just like how it feels to be a leader and talk to 450, 500, 1,000 people all at once. When you've got operators, founders, so many people in a room.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, and this is a plug to you guys, but I mean this, I'm being genuine when I say it. I would say after that pitch we did, we got more people reaching out to us than we have in years. And I think what happened there was everyone should do that exercise where you have to distill your message down to 4 minutes or less. I will say I present a lot. You present for a living. I present for a living. It is nerve-wracking getting into, presenting in front of that many people. Yes, but doing it in 4 minutes and then being judged on it. So it was a little later, definitely uncomfortable, but it was really fun to do. And like I said, everyone should do it because what it makes you think is that it strips away all the features and things that at the end of the day don't really matter so much as the actual problem you're solving. And so when I was kind of thinking about how I wanted to present, I realized I spent probably 3 minutes and 15 seconds on the problem and 45 seconds on the solution. And that is because, and people got that, they could identify with that they were having that problem and they needed to bring automation in to solve that problem. That was MadConnect. And so I would really encourage everyone to do that exercise, whether you're a really big organization or a startup. Try to get your message down to 4 minutes and see if it resonates.
Even when we kick this off, try to get your message down in 1 sentence or in 2 sentences, just saying that you're the switchboard for advertising and marketing, like that alone. So that's really good guidance because you've been a sales leader, because you've been an operator, as the co-founder of MadConnect and as the president. Help us just understand a little bit more of your career and how you have taken the leap into entrepreneurship and how you've gotten to where you are.
Yeah, I've been in this industry for 20 years and, started at a startup And I was really thrown into situations that were uncomfortable, meaning I felt like I wasn't qualified to handle at the time. It was like, hey, talk to, McDonald's about mobile advertising when no one else was. And I never talked to a brand before. But I think continuously putting myself in those more uncomfortable situations that I didn't necessarily feel like I had earned yet, or I just didn't feel qualified for, it's really helped me grow my career. And I was pushed into sales and I wasn't comfortable with that. I was in account management. I was in project management, kind of more behind the scenes, was pushed into that, felt uncomfortable. Same with marketing. And so I've been at, SSPs and on the publisher side for quite some time. And I realized I had a setback in my career at one point. I joined a company that didn't work out, not really in my control, but it didn't matter. And I felt really bummed out. I felt like my ego was bruised in a big way. And I took a moment, and I really think I wish everyone could do this in their career, just kind of take a breath for a minute to really figure out what they want next. And in my head, I kept thinking to myself, I have to go to a big company to prove myself next. But the reality was I didn't want to do that. And I gave myself some time to figure out, I wanted to build something. My whole life, I've wanted to build something and solve a really big problem and do it with people I loved working with, or I could handpick them. And that's where sort of MadConnect was born, right? I got to team up with someone I really respected in the industry. And here I am. And, it's challenging, but it is the most rewarding part of my career thus far.
It's challenging, it's rewarding, and also just taking a damn gamble on yourself. You are in control. And so when you're able to just look yourself in the mirror and say, I got this, I can do this, that makes a difference. And when you're able to choose the right people that you want to work with, it's not work. It just makes it a hell of a lot more fun. It makes your principles, your purpose, and your day to day a lot more fulfilling. There are going to be hurdles and peaks and valleys, just like anything in life. But there's something to say about the way that you explain that. From your seat, what separates sales teams and growing commercial teams and whether it's revenue drivers, customer success, operations that are thriving versus the ones that are quietly struggling, per se?
Yeah. I mean, as you know, you've been in sales, almost your career too. There's so many different things. I think at the end of the day, instead of thinking of yourself as a transactional seller, it's we really do have to think of ourselves as problem solvers. I learned this early on. I have a good example, actually, I was thinking about this morning. When I was at this mobile ad network early on, we kept losing deals to this much bigger mobile ad network. And I remember sitting with an executive at Publicis, and I had just kind of had it, right? Sense it, say it, right? And I had said, what makes this ad network so great? I just wanted to ask the question, we were losing deals. And he looked at me and he said, Heather, every time this sales executive comes in, they say to me, John, what, what problem can I solve for you today? What can I do? And it was a listening and then problem solving together. And I think that no matter what sales role you're in, to being more of that consultative seller that really understands your business, really understands the industry, and realizes that even during times where you don't think that sale is going to happen, how can you provide value to the person on the other side of the table, whether it's through education or whatever that might be. And I started my sales career in New York in 2008 when the financial world was falling apart and nobody wanted to buy anything. And I said to myself, if I can be that person at agencies that can teach them about mobile advertising and mobile marketing when not a lot of people know it, I know the buys will come eventually because they will think of me as someone who adds value to their everyday and can educate them. And that's exactly what I did. So I think it's, I see a lot of teams struggle in sales by not thinking that way, thinking we got to get the deal done, which is great. But how can you add value to the person at the other side of the table, often?
True solution-oriented, consultative sales. Completely agree.
Yeah.
How do you provide value in their day? How do you save them time? How do you help them accelerate? How do you help them ascend or help them with their ascent onto the next level of what they're going to do? And the more value you provide by also going back and forth with another good friend who posted something great on LinkedIn yesterday, and I noticed it last night. The fact that we all have two ears and one mouth. It's basically about, favor the ratio of the two ears versus the one mouth. With that said, who are some mentors that have made a big impact on where you are within your career, just that it have helped you get to where you are?
Yeah. I mean, do you want their names?
Hell yeah, we do. Give them a shout. Like, we want to be able to share this with them. Like, if it's a very cathartic feeling, when you might not be telling them per se that you value their guidance, their help, their feedback, their expertise, and being able to say it publicly. So yeah, shout them out.
Yeah, I think
you're on the spot.
All right, great. I think the mentor who has, I think, helped me the most over the past, last decade, and I don't even know if she knows this, is someone named by the name of Dina Howell, who was an executive at Procter & Gamble. And I met her when I was at Publishers Clearinghouse. And she was, a female in a male-dominated world way back in the day in P&G. And she was really hard on me, and in a good way, because I think a really good mentor is your coach, but they sometimes say the thing that's in the back of your head that but they say it out loud for you to hear. And she has really, I would call her when things were, weren't going well and I had to make some new decisions. And she has given me some really incredible advice over the years that I use. And now, it's good advice because I give it to people that I mentor. And I always give her credit, but some of the things that she said have really stuck with me over the years.
So as an executive and as a co-founder of a business, how do you balance trusting your own instincts with really listening to your team as the company grows, as you need to make these kinds of decisions, and as you're giving guidance and advice both internally and externally to friends, to partners, to younger sellers, sales leads, business operators?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes with experience, right? I think for me, you have to hear your team and listen to your team. There's no question. And I think, we've all had different walks of life, and then we come together and we share those experiences, which I think is so important. But I do trust my gut. And I think, I have been able to, over the years, make some really good decisions based on, taking that feedback and then kind of marrying that with my own experiences, in being able to make those decisions.
When you think through when people are asking for advice, when they're asking for guidance, actually, let me think through this. I'm going to pause for a second because I want this, and we'll edit this part, but thinking through what you just said, because I don't want you to be repetitive, but basically what I'm going to ask you in a second is what kind of advice do people ask for?
Oh yeah, do that. That's a better question. Yeah. Okay. Let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, Heather, and that was a great response. But when people are asking for advice, what are they asking? What are they asking for? Help us understand. Help those of us who are listening, because you are on a fast track. You're crushing it. You're well respected, and I mean that. I don't say that to everybody. And so, what is the kind of guidance that the kind of questions that you're hearing, and the kind of guidance that you're formulating and distilling in your own mind before giving that advice?
Yes. So to be totally honest,
Don't lie to us.
I do a lot of it. I give a lot of advice to males, of course. I mean, I have 3 boys, but when I think about the people who reach out to me the most are females and their moms, and they're young moms or they're moms with younger kids in the household. And they just ask me, how do I do this all? I'm strapped with guilt. I want to build my career. And I give them the advice. So I go back to Dina, and I've kind of tweaked it to, change things around to fit me a little bit. But the advice I give back is you need, every year or every so often, you need to figure out what you're willing to give up or not give up for your career. And that is going to change for you over time. You cannot optimize every part of your life at the same time. And I want to give you a real life example, because for me, and I talked about this with a lot of people who ask me for advice, and I really think it helps because it's really, really genuine. And this really did happen to me that, I was in my 20s, I overinvested in my career, which, as you should, I really believe you should, put all the time in then, because you don't have a lot of obligations, right? And I did all of that, and I just, my career was going like this, right? I moved to New York, then moved to San Francisco, I got this big global role, and I kept growing. And then I decided to have a baby. And I had to sit down and figure out what was important to me then and what I wanted to give up for my career. I felt like I didn't want to give up that much for my career at the time, right? I wanted to be a mom and spend those first early years more focused on my child. And I didn't know any better. I was a new mom. And so I kind of like kept myself in the industry. And obviously I had a full-time job and all of that. But I'll be honest, I wasn't putting my foot on the gas the whole way because I wasn't able to travel globally anymore. I wasn't able to go to every event, but I realized I had to be okay with that. Well, fast forward later, and I do that check-in with myself every so often.
Love this. I love
years ago, I said, I'm ready to go. I want to build my career again. This is what's really important to me. And I also want to be a really good mom, but I can't optimize every part of my life at the same time, Jeremy. So there are things I'm going to have to give up because of that. And I'll give you an example, like having like a big social life in my town is not possible for me right now and keeping up with friends. And so when I go on Instagram or something, which I've actually gotten off of recently, and I look at everybody like going to bar and going to brunch together, I can't feel that bad about that because I consciously made that decision that the things that are going to come first for me right now is being a mom and having a career. And other things I just can't give as much time to. The one thing that you and I have in common, that every single person on this earth have in common, is that we only have 24 hours in a day. That's it, right? So give yourself a little grace and you can't optimize everything at the same time.
I absolutely love this. You and I we actually had this a very similar discussion. None of this is rehearsed. We organically had a very similar discussion a few weeks back when we were in Vegas at CES, and we were talking about that, about the balance, about just they're only 24 hours in a day. They're only the same amount of minutes.
Yep.
How are you going to exercise those minutes? What do you say yes to? What do you say no to?
Yeah.
Whether you're a mom, a dad, a mother, a father, a son, a daughter, a leader, a manager, whatever title, we all have the same amount of time. So I really appreciate that and love the way that you love the way that you explained it and give that kind of guidance and advice to whether it's males, females, non-binary, whomever it might be, people breathing oxygen, because it's the kind of information that people need to hear. There are different seasons and different chapters for people throughout their careers where I went through a similar thing when I had when my daughter was 2.5 and my son was just born. Like, did I want to go? And I was already traveling a lot, but did I want to go and start traveling then globally? I'm like, sounds like an awesome opportunity, but no, not with a 2.5-year-old and a newborn. Absolutely not. That's not for me. And so, however, having a whether it's now my kids are 13 and 10, but having a 13 and 10-year-old, I feel like I'm able to go and do a lot more because you got to take these ebbs and flows, so to speak.
Yes.
I really appreciate how you laid it out. You've built credibility without being the loudest in the room or the loudest in the game. What's been most important when it comes to just earning trust and being respected? Walk us through a little bit about your personal brand.
Thanks. Yeah. I like to think that, my personal relationships in this industry, like some of my best friends are in this industry, like yours. I mean, I married my husband I met at work, right? I spent a lot of time there.
My wife is in our industry. Your husband, yes, totally get it.
That's right.
Yep.
But in all honesty, like, I think I'm often behind the scenes. What I love to do, and I feel like these things we don't talk about often, but I like to connect people behind the scenes. And every time I'm talking to someone, I try to think in the back of my head, who can I connect them with?
We're so similar.
Right? I know we are. Who can I connect them with that will benefit them and benefit that person? And what is so rewarding to me, Jeremy, is like, you see this sometimes, like, you'll introduce people that you really think are going to work well together. And a couple of years later, they're like, Heather, do you know, like, they don't even remember you. Sometimes you introduce, but to me, that makes me feel so good. Is I like to connect good people together. I really, really do. And I think that over time, and there's people out there, I think, that just are transactional. They just sometimes want to like email you when they need something. And to me, it's like
every day I get those.
You gotta help the people who are like, people who are looking for work, people who are, struggling, just checking in with people every so often. And I try to do like, you and I have been in this industry for a long time. We know a lot of people, but like, not check in every month, just every so often, And I think making those connections, even quietly and checking in, you don't have to be the loudest person in the room. That doesn't feel genuine to me, honestly. But I'm often behind the scenes doing that. So
Totally. What does being a good connector and being a good mentor mean to you outside of like what people are posting on LinkedIn?
yeah. I mean, LinkedIn's really important for obviously visibility, this, but like, I'm trying to do more of that. But I do think that, being a good mentor is listening and giving advice. I think it's different than being a friend often, because if I'm, like I have a pitch or something that didn't go well and I call my best friend, she's like, "You're amazing. You're doing great." I'm like, "No, it's sometimes not what I want to hear." Right. And so I have had to, over time, I've heard tough feedback or just things that maybe again, back of my head that hear them said aloud. You're like, "Ooh, that's right." But they don't become as scary when you say them out loud. Right. And I think a good mentor does that, where I do my check-ins, I listen, and then I provide really honest feedback, and based on my experience as well. And those check-ins are important. Those conversations are important. The listening part's important. All of it. And I'm just so happy to see so many of the people that we've like mentored over the years and grown teams like doing so well. And that makes me most happy.
Me too. That really, really way do you close it out. Are there any other parting words or words of wisdom that you want to share with those that are watching and or listening?
I would just say that keep helping people who need it in this industry, right? Keep helping solve problems. And, your network, there's nothing that's more important, right? At the end of the day, we're all trying to solve problems. Yes. And we're all in ad tech or martech or what have you. But, the people are what makes this industry, and your network is the most important part.
Heather, thank you very much. This was great. This was fun.
So
Thanks,
fun.
everybody. Thanks for watching and listening.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thank you.